Well, more now on this morning's long-awaited reopening of the New South Wales-Victoria border. The stroke of midnight signalling the lifting of a division in place for more than 4 months.
Yeah, one man who is certainly celebrating is Qantas CEO Alan Joyce, who joins us now from the airline's headquarters at Mascot in Sydney. Alan, good morning to you. Top of the morning to you. How happy are you?
Good morning. Good morning, Karl. Yeah, we're really happy. I mean, we're going to have 70 flights a day between Melbourne and Sydney, up from 1 a day, still below what it was pre-COVID at 45 flights a day, but a great step in the right direction. And you've seen and you've been showing the pictures all morning of people getting back together again, the hugs at the airport. The domestic airports look like international airports typically would have. Great emotional stories, great to see people being able to get back together, families that haven't seen each other for months. An amazingly positive day.
Yeah, look, it certainly brought a tear to our eye this morning, seeing grandparents hug their grandchildren and sometimes for the first time. And it's going to be so nice to look up at the sky again and actually see planes. This must be a big boost for business.
It is, and it's great for our people because, you know, we're hoping that by Christmas we have 60% of our pre-COVID schedule back in place, domestic schedule. That means a lot more people can fly again. And we have pilots and cabin crew that are flying today for the first time since March. So this is great for our people. It's great for the tourism sector. It's great for Australians being able to get back together. We actually have a Jetstar cabin crew member who hasn't seen their grandkid, 9 months old, and she's on one of the first flights out of Melbourne up to Sydney to be able to see that. So even our staff are having those personal stories, which I think is fantastic.
No, it is fantastic. I mean, this is what you do for a living. I mean, you connect people for a living, and for months upon months you haven't been able to do that. So I'm sure the relief is palpable. When you say 60%, is there any chance that it might be more than that? And given what's happening in Queensland, if that did open up, what difference would that make?
Yeah, we're assuming that Queensland will open up, and given how well Victoria and New South Wales are handling COVID-19, there should be absolutely no reason why that decision is made at the end of this month. And then we're already seeing Jetstar went on a sale, which is still available now for travel post-February, and sold 120,000 tickets in 24 hours. So there's huge pent-up demand. A lot of it from Victorians wanting to travel to Queensland, to travel to Sydney. They were the top 3 routes in that sale. So we know that demand is there. And you know what we're announcing today also, if you're a Platinum 1, Platinum, Gold or Silver, if you make one trip in the next year, you maintain your status for another year. And we think a lot of those frequent flyers will make that trip domestically, and that could get our schedule in the early new year back to closer to 100% of what it was pre-COVID.
It's sounding really positive from you this morning, Alan. Are you feeling positive about how our Christmas will look and borders?
I do. I mean, I hope the right decisions are made on the borders and we get the consistency that we've always been asked for. And I think there's no reason why we shouldn't get there because of the great management of how COVID-19 has been addressed in Australia. And I think there's a psychological thing about Christmas. I've got my family coming up from Melbourne and they're going to spend Christmas with us. I haven't seen them in 6 months. And I want to see all Australian families around the country, we are one country, being able to get together for Christmas. And I think psychologically, socially, that's a very important thing. And we're very optimistic that that will happen. And we'll see more of the scenes that you've seen at the airport here in Melbourne and Sydney, happen in Queensland airports, happening in Western Australian airports. That's what we all want to see.
I think the medical advice that I read over the weekend repeatedly from very senior medical officials is that the way to handle this will be shutting down hotspots rather than shutting down states in the future. Do you think that is the future once everyone does get a little bit more cognizant of the ability to do that?
Yeah, I think so, Karl, until we get a vaccine out there. And, you know, we have a federation, we just need standard rules, because when South Australia had that lockdown, you know, that was based on the medical advice that they had. But we had a flight that was on its way to Perth that the rules changed mid-flight.
Yeah.
And the people on that flight who booked it and got on the aircraft with the impression they were going to get into Western Australia couldn't when they got there. So hopefully we'll get to a standard approach. We get to an approach where people have certainty about where things are going to be. And then the news on the vaccine, again, is extremely positive. So we're getting optimistic that we could see in the middle of next year and towards the end of next year, the international borders opening up. And that gets a lot more of our people back travelling and gets a lot more of our people to be able to travel around the globe, which I think is fantastic.
So just, I mean, we heard from the Tourism Minister, some in Birmingham yesterday. Are you pretty confident then that we will see international travel sometime next year?
Yeah, so we've said this for some time. You know, our base plan is that we will probably get a significant amount of the international operation up in the next financial year, which is between July and June. We always were assuming 50% of it. It is dependent on the vaccine, but the news on the vaccine is looking really, really positive. And can we say there's a lot of pent-up demand out there? You know, if those international trips convert to domestic within the next year as people get comfortable with travelling on international, that's 11 million Aussies that will be travelling here in the domestic market. That's why we're confident in the early new year we could start seeing our schedule getting back to 100% of pre-COVID levels, because we can see this pent-up demand for people wanting to get around the country.
Alan, are planes safe?
Absolutely. You know, what we can show and have seen, a study done by Airbus, Boeing and IATA, shows that the chance of catching COVID on an aircraft is very low. We have hospital-grade filters that filter out COVID-19. The air's taken out 20 times an hour. In a hospital theatre, 5 times an hour. And Boeing have showed that sitting next to somebody in an aircraft is the equivalent of being 7 to 8 feet on the ground apart from somebody. And there's been very low cases. You know, in the whole year that COVID's been here, there've been 44 known transmissions on an aircraft, but 1.2 billion people have travelled. And all those cases happened in March or before of this year. And the whole process airlines have put into place with cleaning aircraft, with giving people masks and sanitizers, with changing the way people board the aircraft, changing the way lounges operate, has made it even safer than it was back then. And the risk was low even before that.
Okay, the other good news is, and I hope you don't mind me saying, that one of the great world travellers is on our team in Richard Wilkins. He's got his little Christian Dior toiletries bag packed and ready to roll. And he's also grateful that you've been able to restock and save on the little gin bottles. He's ready and rolling as soon as you get those borders open to Queensland and overseas. So well done to you, Alan. Nice to see you.
Thanks,
well,
Alan.
we would tell Richard we have the gin and tonic waiting on seat 1A next time he gets on the aircraft.
Oh, no.
Don't treat him too well.
It's there for him, and tell him I guarantee it.
He's a man of the people, that Richard Wilkins, that's for sure. Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
Nice to see you, mate.
He goes down to economy. He goes down to economy and visits them once per flight for 2 minutes. That's
Sign some autographs. What a great punch-up this is on Richard Wilkins. Great stuff.
We'll have him
mate.
in here in a little moment.
Yeah,
He
we
can
will.
explain himself.